Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Switch gears, and I want to circle back on a story that we discussed on Wednesday's Aaron Torres podcast. It involved Hunter Dickinson. It involved his recruitment, and it involved reports that the University of Kentucky not only might be getting involved, but that Kentucky might actually be the favorite, depending on the status and future of Oscar Tshiebwe. And so on Wednesday's show, I said, listen, I got nothing but respect for people who work hard in this business. And I said, it just doesn't pass the smell test to me. Doesn't pass the smell test because Hunter Dickinson has not visited Kentucky since he was way back in high school. Doesn't pass the smell test because we don't know Oscar Tshiebwe's future. And I said, I'm sorry, but I just don't see it. And so I bring it up because on Thursday morning, we got a report from my good buddy, David Sisk at Rivals.com. David does an incredible job covering recruiting for Kentucky and North Carolina. That Hunter Dickinson, Hunter Dickinson does in fact have a visit planned for the University of Kentucky this coming weekend. And so let me just say this. Listen, one thing about this show, I get a lot of stuff right. Okay, I think I give you insight on a lot of things that you don't find insight on anywhere else. I think I've given you probably 10, 12, 15 things in the last couple weeks that you haven't heard anywhere else. But one thing also about me is that sometimes in life, you gotta take an L. And one thing about me, I own all my L's. I own that I get stuff wrong. Sometimes we do a segment called Aaron Right, Aaron Wrong every single week to talk about my biggest L's of the week. We're going to do it after this segment. And so I bring it up to just say, when you talk about an all-time L, to go from Wednesday, me saying, I just didn't see it with Kentucky, to Thursday morning, David Sisk reporting that Hunter Dickinson is in fact going to visit Kentucky, your boy has to take an L. I got to own it. Bad by Torres. Shame on you. Slap on the wrist. Now let's get to the good stuff. What does this mean for, first of all, what changed? What does this mean for Kentucky? And just in the big picture, 30,000 foot view, what does it mean for Hunter Dickinson's recruitment? And so let's get into it. And there's been a lot of new context since I recorded Wednesday morning. A lot of just new stuff that has come out. And so part of the reason, again, why I just said, listen, I'm not doubting that Kentucky has been in contact with him, but I don't think Kentucky is a real player for a couple different reasons. The two main reasons, well, really three main reasons that I thought that Hunter Dickinson, while he may have been in contact with Kentucky, wasn't a serious candidate to transfer there is for three, again, specific reasons. The first one, I said it. I said, look, he's visiting Maryland. He's visiting Georgetown. He did that last weekend. He's visiting Kansas later this week. I know that he visited Kentucky in high school, but I just don't see the scenario where he's going to commit to somewhere in the most meaningful decision of his career to this point without taking a visit. Beyond that, I said two other things. I said, one, I certainly can't see him visiting or committing, to Kentucky without taking a visit, but also without knowing the status of Oscar Tshiebwe going forward. As of Wednesday afternoon, all we knew was that Oscar Tshiebwe was testing the NBA draft waters, but there were mixed reports on how serious he was about coming back to college basketball. And then finally, and we talked about this a lot, it came down to, would John Calipari actually accept a commitment with Oscar Tshiebwe's NBA draft status uncertain? So when you talk about what changed, well, we literally got answers to all of those questions since I recorded on Wednesday morning. First off, John Calipari, that sly little devil, Coach Cal, he met with Hunter Dickinson on, I guess it was Tuesday or Wednesday, in Michigan. It was a very stealth meeting, flew into a private airport. Hunter Dickinson met him there, and they really talked about everything big picture. Part of what they talked about was, hey, we got to get you to campus. We have a new strength and conditioning coach. We have new stuff going on. We want to get you there. So check number one. I didn't think he'd commit, and I'm not saying he's going to commit, but I'm just saying I didn't think he'd commit anywhere without visiting. Well, he's going to visit this Sunday, according to David Sisk. 2, we didn't know the status of Oscar Tshiebwe, but Hunter Dickinson actually addressed this on his podcast with Barstool Sports. I'm going to read you a little segment of what Hunter Dickinson said about Oscar Tshiebwe's status at Kentucky. Hunter Dickinson, in his meeting with Coach Cal, said this is what Hunter Dickinson said about his meeting with Coach Cal on the Barstool Sports podcast. He said, "We talked about the situation occurring, situation being Oscar Tshiebwe's future. We talked about that situation, obviously, because that's very contingent on, even if I was interested in them, that's why I wanted to meet with them, to talk about that, because that has a lot to do with me even being interested in them at all. We talked about that." He continued, "I don't really want to say what was said because that's another person's business. I don't want to say what he's doing because that's his business, but obviously whatever we talked about was good enough for me to take the visit. So I guess that's news right there." Again, and by the way, respectful of Hunter Dickinson, I respect that, is he's asking tough questions and John Calipari is giving him good answers. As Hunter Dickinson said, that's Oscar's business. I'm not trying to get in the middle of Oscar's business or make the decision any tougher for him. But why am I going to take a visit? Why am I seriously going to consider Kentucky if they are going to take this guy back, or if there's a belief that he's coming back? Well, Hunter Dickinson basically told you Oscar Tshiebwe isn't coming back. And then 3, we also got an answer to the final question that I had on Wednesday, when after it was announced that Hunter Dickinson would take a visit, my buddy Jack Pilgrim said, "Look, if Hunter Dickinson is ready to commit on that visit, John Calipari will take the commitment. We're not waiting around. We're not screwing around. We love Oscar. Everybody loves Oscar. You can't watch college basketball and not love Oscar Tshiebwe. But at the same time, if Hunter Dickinson, this is what we talked about on Wednesday's show. I said, if you have a bird in the hand, if you have a 7-footer in the hand, it's better than, what do they say, 2 in the bush? If you have Hunter Dickinson ready to commit, you have to take it. And it appears as though John Calipari is ready to take it. So yes, I got to take the L, but at the same time, all 3 of my biggest questions were all answered on sometime between Wednesday night and Thursday morning. And now it sets up, boy, oh boy, a fascinating home stretch of Hunter Dickinson's recruitment. Now listen, I don't really know how far along it is. I assume that he's probably going to commit in the next 2.5, 3 weeks at maximum. Probably the next 2 weeks, I would think, because, hey, most schools let out in early May, and then everybody's got to report back in late May or early June for summer school. So my hunch is this decision is coming, but I do think it changes just a little bit in terms of what we can expect and what the timeline is. First of all, if Hunter Dickinson's still taking meetings and Hunter Dickinson's still taking visits, in theory, is still adding visits, I should say, in theory, it's still possible that other teams could get on his radar. Now, I don't think there's that many rocks left to unturn, but listen, you've heard reports and I've heard reports. Arkansas is trying to get in the mix there. So Arkansas is the other one to me that becomes interesting, because obviously if Hunter Dickinson is still adding visits, then my hunch is that he's willing to at least consider other visits as well, although we will see. And then from there, it gets really interesting. Now, as I record here on Thursday, Hunter Dickinson is in the middle of a visit to Kansas, which obviously a lot of people think right now might be the favorite. Then he's got Kentucky. Then we see if he has any other visits. But again, at the end of the day, it feels like this is coming down the home stretch. Now, in terms of what that actual decision will be, I'll just be blunt. On the one hand, everything, this whole Kentucky twist throws an absolute monkey wrench in everything. But I also think you got to feel good if you're a Kentucky fan, because on the one hand, it throws the monkey wrench in, because I'm not sold. I truly believe this in my heart of hearts. I don't even think Hunter Dickinson knows where he wants to go yet. If he knew for sure, he either wouldn't be adding visits, or on the flip side, he would have already asked these tough questions to Kentucky, already gotten the answers, and already visited. So the fact that he visited Maryland, that he visited Georgetown, that he is, as I'm recording now, visiting Kansas, and now set to visit Kentucky, that means to me that I don't even think Hunter Dickinson knows totally for sure. But what we'll find out over the coming days and weeks is kind of what he values the most. Does he value being the hometown hero? If so, it's probably Maryland. Does he value being, say, the hometown hero, but also the face of a rebuild? Because if so, it's probably Georgetown. Does he value the place where he believes he can go and be the missing piece of a national championship contender? Because then it's Kansas, then it's Kentucky. If it's all about NIL, the answer could be something different. I can't speak for what Georgetown or Maryland or Kansas or Kentucky could put together for a player of Hunter Dickinson's caliber. Now, I know that obviously Oscar Tshiebwe probably, with everything dating back to last summer in the Bahamas, was maybe the most well-compensated player in college basketball. So the point I'm trying to make is I think it's impossible to really know because I don't think Hunter Dickinson knows. But when we get that decision, we're going to find out. Is it about winning a national championship, going home, being the face of a program? What is it? But we should find out. But what I will say from the Kentucky perspective, I think you got to feel really good if you're a Kentucky fan right now about this recruitment. Because 2 days ago, we didn't have a visit. We didn't have a meeting with Coach Cal. All we had was a vague Zoom interview a few weeks ago and rumblings that there was interest. But now we know they met. And we know Coach Cal, listen, we can criticize Coach Cal to the high heavens on the court in whatever happened in December, January, February. But this man it's incredible what he just did. What he just did was, as Hunter Dickinson's recruitment is coming down the home stretch, he convinced Hunter Dickinson, no, you need to be more seriously considering us. And so I give him a ton of credit. And I think if you're a Kentucky fan, you got to feel really good. Because on the one hand, if Hunter Dickinson was 100% sold on what Maryland had to offer, what Georgetown had to offer, or that Kansas was maybe the final fit, and we'll see, by the way, if I learned anything from yesterday, it's that maybe Kansas knocks his socks off, he cancels the Kentucky visit, and he commits right now. But I think if he was 100% sold on anything that he had seen so far, he's not taking Coach Cal's call, he's not taking Coach Cal's visit, and he's not visiting Kentucky himself. And so we'll find out what happens in the coming days. But if you're a Kentucky fan, I got to be real. You have to feel really, really, really good that this guy literally potentially pushed back the whole process an extra 5, 6, 7 days, whatever it ends up being, to see your campus, to meet with your staff, to get to know what Kentucky's all about. You got to feel really, really, really good. And it'll be a fascinating story to watch unfold. Finally, let me just say this. I want to move on to the other big commitments of the last couple days, but shout out BBN, shout out Hunter Dickinson, shout out all the people who had it right. Got to take an L on Hunter Dickinson in Kentucky from 24 hours ago.